If you haven't studied anatomy before, or you're not really a science person, or you just haven't studied in a really long time, it can seem a little overwhelming when you start delving into the anatomy portion of your Pilates course, but there's no need to worry. I was not an anatomy person, I was not a science person. I found a way to learn everything I needed to know in order to pass my exam, and I still use a lot of this anatomy every single day when I teach Pilates classes. And I wanted to share some of the ways that I learned how to learn the anatomy with you so that you're more comfortable with learning it, you're excited about learning it, and you just can be more relaxed about it. Now, the first thing you might want to do is just jump right into your muscle flashcards, but I wouldn't recommend that. Instead, you should learn the anatomical terms and references before you do anything else. And I'll explain why later. If you're studying through STOTT Pilates, you can find a list of these terms on page 74 of your support manual. There's only about 25 or 30 references. It's really easy to learn in just one day, and that's where you definitely want to start. If you're not studying through STOTT Pilates, chances are you still have a list of these terms in one of the manuals that you received through your Pilates training. And if you still can't find or don't have a list of these anatomical references, you can definitely find it in the Trail Guide to the Body. This is a book that I've seen most Pilates instructors or student instructors be required to purchase in order to learn anatomy for their Pilates course. And another book that's required for STOTT instructors and a lot of other Pilates instructors is Anatomy of Movement. It also has a list of the anatomical references in the introduction. After learning the anatomical references, it's still not time to jump into your flashcards just yet. You need to learn the skeleton. You need to learn the skeletal system. And all that really means is that you just need to learn the names of the bones in the body. Again, this is pretty simple. You could probably learn it in a day or two just through flashcards, just through looking at your Trail Guide to the Human Body, or really you could even find the names of the bones online. Pilates Anatomy is another Pilates anatomical book that most instructors are required to have. And as you can see, there's a really nice color image that you can use in order to learn the names of the bones in the skeleton. So now that you know the anatomical references, the terms used with anatomy, and the names of the bones in the skeleton, it's time to start focusing on the muscles. Now, you have a lot of muscles you need to get through in the body, and you're not going to want to tackle them all at once. I strongly recommend you divide your flashcards, or however you're studying your muscles, into different sections based on either the body, the section of the body, or muscle groups. Again, if you're studying through STOTT Pilates, they made it pretty simple for you. They already divided the names of the muscles that you need to know into these separate groups. And you can find that on page 75. If you are taking STOTT Pilates, you need to learn these muscles in order to pass your exam. There is a part of the test where you just identify the muscles. If you learn these, you get I don't know, maybe 50 points, something crazy. So it's a really good idea to just memorize these. And if you're not studying STOTT Pilates, again, just divide the body into different body sections: arms, legs, torso. You can also divide by muscle groups, and I actually have a blog post where I go over the different muscle groups that you need to learn in order to teach Pilates. So I'll leave that link down below for you. Now, you just want to go through these flashcards however you would just naturally go through flashcards, one at a time, testing yourself until every time you flip it over, you can identify the name of the muscle. Don't worry about origin or antagonist or anything like that right now. Just focus on identifying the names of the muscles. And then once you've got that down, just go ahead and start adding on a little bit more, like the origin and then the insertion, and then little by little, it all starts to build together. And this is where learning the anatomical terms, references, and the bones of the body is really going to help you remember the names of the muscles. Most of the muscles in the body are named after either shape, function, or location on the body, or a combination of those. Actually, they're named after a lot more than that, but for our purposes, for now, for just getting started, that's what we want to focus on. Just to use an example, let's look at the subscapularis. The subscapularis literally tells you exactly where it is by name alone. So if we just look at the first part of the word, we have sub, and we already know what that means in English, right? Sub meaning like underneath, below, under. And then we're just gonna put that together with the second part of the word, scapula. Well, we know what that means because we studied the bones of the body. We know what the skeleton parts are. And so the subscapularis is a muscle that sits underneath your scapula. And that's why it's associated with the other rotator cuff muscles, which we know because we learned our muscle groups. Another thing to keep in mind when you're studying this terminology is that it's in Latin, which is similar to Spanish in the sense that you can pronounce every single letter. And even if you pronounce it a little bit wrong, it doesn't matter. Just get into the habit of pronouncing all the letters in the words, and that's going to help you memorize the names of these muscles. I still say things a little bit wrong. I technically did my mat training in London, and I did my equipment training in the US, and they say anatomical words very differently. Nobody cares in your class when you're teaching them. Learning how to say them phonetically is just going to help you spell them, and it's going to help you just keep it in your mind. Another thing you can do is something called mnemonics. It's just making up a silly little story to help your brain remember something. I learned this from one of my instructor trainers, is that the way she was able to remember the name for the radius versus the ulna, which one is which, she envisioned a guy giving the thumbs up and saying rad or radical. And obviously that's the beginning of radius. And that's how she was able to remember that the radius is the bone in the arm, the forearm that's attached to your thumb, as opposed to the ulna. The second thing that I would strongly recommend you do is applying a lot of this anatomy to the exercises that you're also learning for your Pilates certificate. Every time you're teaching any exercise, think about which muscles you're using, how you're using it concentrically versus eccentrically, what the function is, and then that's also going to help you remember the muscles when you're taking your exam and when you become a fully certified instructor. And then you'll already be in the habit of explaining these muscles for these exercises and explaining muscles usage for exercises in general when you're teaching your classes. I use anatomy all the time in every single class, and people are blown away by my knowledge. And honestly, it's not that deep. I just memorized a lot of the names of these muscles and how they worked, and then I apply that knowledge to the exercises. So if you really want to stand out as an instructor, learn your anatomy and apply the anatomy to the exercises in the class. Again, your STOTT Pilates manual already has the names of the muscles that you use in the exercise, and I believe most Pilates instructor manuals do. And then that's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully these tips will help you to learn your anatomy. Again, I strongly recommend you just go into it. Really enjoy this part of the class. I think a lot of people get intimidated and don't really give it their all because it just seems so overwhelming and there's so much Latin and I never looked at anatomy before. So this is pretty overwhelming initially, but it's totally doable. And like I said, it really helps me to stand out as an instructor, even when I just got started, knowing anatomy really helped me gain a lot of respect, even though I was a new instructor, even though I made mistakes. So I strongly recommend that you do so as well. And if you're someone that's really strong in anatomy, especially with regards to anatomy and Pilates, please feel free to leave any tips and any suggestions in the comment boxes below so that we can help each other in our Pilates instructor journey. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. I also have a blog which goes over a lot of this information for Pilates instructors that I'll leave linked down below. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you on the next one.